The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Green Room. This is a show where we balls up completely for the last couple of years, blame everybody else, take no accountability for ourselves. But as always, I am your host, Terry Cook, and I'm delighted to be here, and you'll be delighted that it's not just me. I am joined firstly by a couple of my lovely premium members who are going to be watching along and potentially joining in later on, but I'm also joined by the man of many hats, Chris Bensted. How are we doing, Chris?
I'm good, yes. I'm celebrating the balls ups with you.
Excellent. Now, which hat are you going to wear today? Which hat do you think is going to be most appropriate? Do you think DITC, Fairytist Explained, Solutions Coach, Author?
I reserve the right to change, but I think if we're going to debate the DVSA, I should probably aim with my children's book hat aimed at ages 3 to 7.
Excellent. Well, we've got a lot of news to cover today. Loveday Rider was speaking about the reasons why there's a backlog, and the DVSA have announced their annual report, and there's been a massive debate going on Facebook. I've seen at least 3 debates about this recently, about the incredibly important topic of what should we do first, lift your clutch to biting point or set your gas, the one that's guaranteed to cause a big argument. So lots of news to cover. Later on, we're potentially going to be talking about driving instructors on social media and are we a problem? Do we need fixing? But that will depend because I still haven't decided what we're going to do on today's show. So we'll find out in a bit. But just before we kick off, a couple of things I want to mention. So firstly, this Green Room, if you are listening to this, you'll be able to find the video for this on YouTube when the podcast goes out to the general public. It will also go up on YouTube as a video. So if you would rather watch this rather than listen, go and check out the Instructor Podcast YouTube channel. You can search for it or you'll find the link in the show notes. Now, most of the regular podcast episodes will go up, but they won't be in video form. They'll be in simple podcast form. But this is going to be available over on YouTube. I'll also chuck in now that if you're a DITC member, you'll get these episodes early. My premium members get them early. Obviously, we look after those guys, but DITC members also get them early now because Chris occasionally contributes, which is nice of him. Also want to take a quick mention to shout out to the Meginar, the Instructor Meginar, which is taking place on the 3rd of August. It's going to be pretty cool. I think it's either going to be the best CPD event of the summer, and I'm sticking with that tagline, or it's going to be an absolute disaster. And I think whichever one of those roads it takes, excuse the pun, it's well worth attending. You need to sign up to the Instructor Podcast newsletter to get the links and the details and all that kind of stuff. So you can either go to the show notes, you'll find a link there, or you can go to the website, which is www.theinstructorpodcast.com, or you can drop me a message and I'll send you a link. But get signed up to that. We've got 9 speakers, 2 of which are with us today, actually. We've got 9 speakers over 3 hours delivering some awesome content, but we might touch back on that a little bit more later on. But as we said, Chris, there's been some news this month. What do you want to start with?
Well, I think we'll go straight in with the DVSA opinion that it's not their fault, don't we?
Well, let's see what Loveday said. Said the 3 main reasons why driving test waiting times are longer are an increase in forecast demand caused by a stronger than expected. I'm trying not to laugh as I say this stuff, and I don't think I can. An increase in forecast demand caused by a stronger than expected economy, sustained industrial action, and low customer confidence in driving test availability, resulting in a change in customers' booking behaviour. Is that what's causing the long waiting times? Not contributing, because we can't lie and say it's not contributing. Is that what's causing the long waiting times?
No, there's no tests available. Sorry, is that too simplistic? I had a meeting the other day, which I very much appreciated, and it's been a while getting there. But I was promised it a while back, and I got to sit down with someone from the DVSA and have a chat about. I asked the question, not how should we run our businesses, because they won't answer that, but how do we use their waiting system, their booking system. Which managed to therefore get a response and a sit down, to which the answer is the system doesn't work very well. So, everyone's guess is as good as ours. But it was actually quite positive. They're doing lots. They're trying to work things out. But you couldn't get away from the fact that they don't know how long the queue is. The analogy that I've used previously on the green room of, we can see it goes down to the corner, but we can't see round the corner as to how far it is. We know it's 6 months. And arguably, I get what they're saying. It's not 6 months because over time and things come out on a shorter term basis and they get filled up. But the 6 months is released, but there's this queue that goes around the corner and they don't know how big that queue is. Now, and I will just, because I mentioned to Terry earlier, I sometimes forget to credit people when they've said things to me that were quite clever. And this isn't Terry, it's Johnny Greaves, driving instructor, said to me when I happened to be going on my way to the meeting, well, surely we just look at how many active theory certificates there are. I don't think the DVSA have thought of that one. So I raised that and they're going to hopefully come back to me with a figure, because I think that would give us an idea of how many to expect. I also wonder about this, this better than expected economy. How bad did they expect it to be?
I mean, all right, let's try not to get political. It could have been a lot worse if a certain Liz had stayed in power, and I'm not talking about the Queen. So it could have been an awful lot worse, I suppose. But I don't feel a particularly strong economy, and I don't think 99% of the population do. And I think that's that's a Rishi Sunak comment. That's the government saying everything's rosy. That meme of the dog in the fire, where it's just that everything's fine and everything's burning around it. That's what that feels like with that. But I mean, we've got to be honest about this. The backlog was initially caused by a shutdown of society. That's what caused it. It wasn't the fault of the DVSA. It was caused by this. Have they handled it brilliantly? In my opinion, no. But then again, we've never been in this situation before. It took a long time for me to actually start being overtly critical of what they were doing on publicly, because I give an awful lot of leeway, thinking even during COVID, anyone that listens to this podcast or listens to me knows that I'm not a particularly big fan of this current incarnation, so we say, of the Conservative Party or Boris Johnson. However, I gave him an awful lot of leeway during COVID because we've never been in this situation before.
Yeah,
and I think that's the issue. We have now been in this situation a while, and it feels like all we get is fluff and nonsense. And while it may not be unnecessarily overtly lies, it feels like we get lies. That's what it feels like. And it's just rubbish. I mean, those reasons are all accurate. Again, everything they said there. So they spoke about an increase in forecast on demand for strong... there is an increase in demand, but that's expected. We could have told you that. Everyone on this call saying, probably every single person listening or watching could have told us that the demand is going to either sustain or go up. It's not going to go down. And we're not even trained in this crap. And they've got people that are trained in this crap. Sustained industrial action, yes. Mm-hmm. But again, we knew about that. That was something that's been going on for quite a while, and it's why is there industrial action? Because examiners aren't paid enough. Pay the examiners more, there's no industrial action. Now, I don't necessarily know whose remit that falls under, the DVSA, the government, whatever, but there's a reason why there is industrial action. And then the other one, and I kind of got a little bit of sympathy with the last one. So low customer confidence in driving test availability resulting in a change in customers' booking behaviour. I think that's accurate.
I don't.
Okay. Why?
Because I think it's their responsibility to communicate better. We're there again. Their responsibility to communicate better, and telling everybody that there's a 6-month waiting list and not telling people how to use the booking process properly is causing some of that increased pressure and demand. And it's panic buying, effectively, that there's certain things that you could do to reduce those issues. I accept there's lots of computer says no, and that was the conversation that I had when I was sat down with them. The other day was that there's lots of things the system can't do, We know that they are currently building a new. Sorry, they are currently talking about building a new computer system. We need that, absolutely. I wasn't told not to say it, so there's potential talks about looking at building effectively bots. The bots that we keep complaining about, but a version that actually works for the DVSA. But again, it's talking about it. It's going to take forever. We're going to resolve the situation before those things come about. If anything, that's gone before is anything to go by. There's been some real positives, and that they've taken lots of steps to improve things that haven't been communicated well. So the figure that on the surface looks really dodgy, which I think I'm correct in saying, 700 newly employed examiners, but they've lost 733, which sounds like a real problem. But actually, as I had a really interesting conversation about, they've got rid of part-timers. They've got rid of the non-flexible contracts. They're in a much better system with the assets that they've got than they were before. So although the net figure is 33 down, we've got 700 new fresh faces, which are the right fresh faces coming through by the sounds of things. They've also acknowledged that online interview process was not getting them who they needed, so they moved back towards doing face-to-face stuff, which is more aggro, higher cost to them time-wise, and everything else. But actually, if you get the right people, that's what's important. But I don't think that's been communicated, and we've had that fluff in its place. Lead with that. If you're going to say, where are we at? We've got better assets in place. We've got more flexibility. Give us a bullshit percentage that doesn't really mean anything. We accept those, but one that actually sort of says we are this much more flexible, and then we can understand that. But telling us that the economy's better than it should have been, it isn't going to wash. And if it's your responsibility to communicate with the customers and ready to pass, we're both big fans. Absolutely. I think they've done a cracking job. It hasn't addressed that area of, a how to book your test specifically, and do that with an instructor, not get a test and then phone an instructor and hold up a test because they can't give you lessons. Wait until the people who can't get tests have then got tests to then make a space in the diary. Because that's the conversation we keep having every day.
I mean, I do have some sympathy for them. I know you say disagree, but around that changing of the way customers book their tests, because they've partly caused it, as you say, with the poor communication stuff, but it's the mass booking, it's the people taking advantage of the situation, it's the panic buying, that kind of stuff. That's making their job harder. I think that's where I say I've got a bit of sympathy for them, but it all comes down to that communication, and you made a really key point that I think me and you spoke about this when you first mentioned it, about the new booking system and that she was talking about in Parliament, and it was really interesting the way she phrased it, which was, we're developing this, and then she stopped and went, no, we're not, we're going to. And I thought that pretty much sums up everything that's wrong with the current government. Oh, stop getting political. You know what I mean? It sums up the problem. I'm going to say this to kind of, and hope that it'll appease people a little bit. I'm going to say this to deflect blame. I mean, I don't do this often, but I'm going to give this example. I put a post up on my Facebook page just recently about the communication I had with my students over the last 18 months, where I've struggled with physical health, and the times when I wasn't able to get in a car. And if you can't get in a car, you can't deliver driving lessons, but also the mental stuff as well, and the everything that's gone on in the last 18 months or so. And all of my students have been awesome. All of them. Some of them were offering to help. In fact, a very quick story, one that amused me the most, is that I was driving to a student's house who only lives about 20 minutes away, and I was having to pull up every 2 or 3 minutes to get out of the car because I couldn't stay sat down. And I dropped her a message and said, I'm running a bit late because of this. And she replied back and went, take the fucking day off, dickhead. And I went, yeah, that would make more sense. Thank you for that. But that kind of kicked me into looking after myself. But it was me being honest, and this communication, they've all been superb. And I posed the question, if the DVSA communicated better and were more kind of open, and I forget the exact word I used, but even put in an apology and said, look, we stuck with this, we try to do this, would ADIs respond better? And every single person has said, yeah, every single person. And when you read the comments, some awesome comments on there, ADIs just wanted the communication. They want the honesty, they want the openness, they want the DVSA to say, we're really struggling. We're doing this best, but we're really struggling. We can't meet the targets we've set. Here's why. Here's what we're doing about it. We're sorry. We know you've got it tough. And I just think, you know what? Think back to that email at the start of the year, the success of 2022. And compare that to the email that goes, yeah, we've done some good stuff in 2022 around these areas, but we've struggled here, and this is why. And I just think that makes all the difference. Would you concur with that, Chris?
Yes. And absolutely. I'm not even that bothered about the apology because, to be honest, sorry there was COVID and, sorry we haven't been very good. I'd rather hear solutions. But, yeah, no, absolutely. I think we want to be treated as if we're equal in the process. And the other thing I would like to hear is the acknowledgement of the job that instructors are doing by default, because we got to actually communicate with our customers where it should be coming from the DVSA. We should be supporting that communication 100%. But actually, the primary communication is coming from us, and it shouldn't be. And we're having to do the juggling, and we're taking a lot of the pressure off. And I haven't heard that acknowledged, and I think it would be nice to. And possibly some kind of measure, even if it's just a phone number of this. If this affects you, call this number. For instructors that are struggling, because there's a lot of mental health concerns. I don't get a week go by without talking to an instructor who is really on the edge of surviving, whether that be personally or business wise, from the extra stress. And we're seeing people leaving and going, oh, I can't be bothered anymore. I'll go and do something else, or I won't do anything. I'd like to see that too. But, say not so bothered about the apology, just a bit of on equal terms stuff.
I think that's a really good point. And I think it's easy to be blasé about those people that are struggling, or just, whatever, just say no. But, I think you make a really good point. And I try not to be too critical. I like to look for problems, solving the problem. I like to look for answers. I like to challenge things rather than just being overtly negative. So I don't want to bang on about this too much, but I think it's worth mentioning, to do a podcast about the industry, looking at the news upon the industry without mentioning this. And let's be honest, there's nothing positive to say about this. So I'm not going to just be the podcast that just rants and raves for an hour. But to not mention it would be amiss. But I do want to ask you the question, and I'm careful how I word this. Does it matter if a student has to wait 6 months for a test? Now, I don't mean like if they're ready and they've then got to wait 6 months. I mean, let's just the normal process. You have a few lessons, you pass your theory test, and then you've got to wait 6 months. If that was standard, is that in itself a problem?
No, but I don't think that's actually the case. The case is that tests are becoming available at a maximum of 6 months, and there's more pupils looking for tests than that. So we've got the stress of the pressure that's being put on that if you choose to get up at 6 a.m, my question was, why 6 a.m? Why can't we move it to something that's even just 7 a.m would be more reasonable to take the pressure off. If you choose to get up, you choose to fight for those tests. Or you make the decision, and I'm seeing more and more instructors openly saying it, because at the beginning it was a black market and was frowned upon, of going, no, I've got pupils paying 200 quid for a test. I'm even pointing them in the direction of the people who sell them now. Yeah, not me personally, but this is what I'm hearing. I don't do the proper job. We all know that. I'm busy doing my theory. Went out and did a proper lesson this week, though. So I think that extra pressure that from the, we need more than 6 months. If it was 6 months, there's a lot of instructors who've been doing the job for longer than I that will say, yeah, that was the standard. So you start learning, you probably get your theory done before you start learning, and you book your test so that we know where it is. Yeah, brilliant. It's the absence of having a test. And then the other people coming along who haven't even started yet, who've got a test. And that's where the issue is. It's in the pieces are in the wrong places. And every organization will tell you that that's where we end up, going to the wall. We can't. We're reliant on them. But if you've got the pieces in the wrong places, you might as well not have them in the first place.
I'll finish with one comment on this, and I'll let you come back on this, Chris, because there was a comment in particular that sparked my attention on the Facebook post I put up, and it was by a friend of us all, Lou Walsh. It said, 1,854 days since the DVSA promised to communicate better with audit trainers, we get our first email. It was the same email as all ADIs got, except ours said Dear Audit Trainer instead. We haven't had one since. Anything you want to respond to on that, Chris, or is that just a good point to end that aspect of this conversation?
I think Lou says it all there. And that's DVSA communication in a nutshell. To be honest, give them credit. We got an email. That's probably better than average.
Let's move on then to the their recently released annual report, and glowing praise about themselves in that report, the success they've achieved and the success they've done. But I want to make a slight confession here, because this is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one when I say this, I'm in the driving instructor bubble. So when I think of the DVSA, I think of driving instructors and driving tests. I think of nothing else. And reading that report, I was like, there's some really, really good stuff in there that they've done. Bugger all to do with tests and instruction. I mean, there was one little box that was like hidden away about it, just numbers, but some really, really good stuff in there. And I thought, maybe I'm too harsh when I talk about the DVSA. Maybe I need to be very, very specific about what aspect I'm talking about. I don't know, but I don't want to go into the report as a whole. I don't think that there's a lot that necessarily needs covering there. But do you think that's something you would agree with, the fact that we get in this bubble and we forget the fact that they're doing a lot of stuff really well, doing a good job? Well, yeah, we'll go with that. A lot of stuff really well, doing a good job in some areas. But we just feel insulated and see this bit and then tar everyone with the same brush, potentially.
Yes, totally agree. I also see it the other way round, is if they're doing that well on other stuff, what's the difference? Is it us? Are we the problem? I'm open to that. I don't think it's the case. I don't think we do ourselves any favors some of the time for them to be able to engage. We as a mass can be quite militant, or we if we don't see the point in it, then we don't want to engage in it. And I think that's a massive problem. It's the minimum standards industry. We all focus on that, what's required for the test, and even the best of us that are looking for safe driving for life as it is meant, the real tagline, still get sucked into that bubble of test stuff and DVSA stuff. As you say, that's only part of what the DVSA do. But there's some really good best practice when you look at how they work with lorry companies and things and who have embraced being one of their key partners, the ones that behave themselves, basically. If you behave yourself well, the DVSA will leave you alone. Now, they've tried to do that with the standards check and the grade A, grade B, and just everybody's, everybody, a vast majority have kind of, fought back against it because they don't want to be judged by the DVSA. It's not their job. It blooming is, because it's who decides if we have a license or not. So yeah, I think it's really interesting to be reminded of all those different assets and facets of what the DVSA do and what they're responsible for. I also think we have a habit of lumping them in with the DVLA, and kind of not differentiating there as well. And from experience, they're sister agencies. They don't work together. They'll be in the same room sometimes, but I think that absolutely there's things that we should really be aware of, at least, maybe communicated better.
How can I put this? So for me, it falls back to that blame and that accountability. I think that when you release that report and you term it as a success, surely there should just be a page on there and here's where we can do better. I always feel like that. And I know I'm getting a bit negative again, but I always feel like that. It's what I do. I always talk to people after these podcasts. Most of you guys know that after a podcast episode, the first thing I always say is, give me some feedback. Is there anything I could have done better today? I could have made this episode better for you. When I finish a series, I put the links out. Come and give me your thoughts on this. What can I change for next season? What can I do? Now, admittedly, they send those surveys out and then do the opposite of what we say, which, do you know what? Is it any wonder why we get negative sometimes when I'm saying all this stuff and I realise it when I'm saying it? But you put forward, why do they do why are they doing so well in these areas but not ours? Well, just be slightly conspiratorial for a second. Those driving tests and theory tests are booked up. That's their money earned. That's what they need to do. What problem is actually causing them?
Yeah, and unless you take into account that the grief of not having the waiting list and the problems that are caused and the lack of flexibility probably costing them an absolute fortune in having to try and fix it, and the strike action on top of that, and I don't know. I'm not totally convinced.
Yeah, I'm being a bit conspiratorial. It's not necessarily something I believe, but if you're looking at priorities, I'd imagine that the driving tests are quite low down in terms of priorities when there's other areas there, because they might be getting some grief, but there's a lot of sheltered people there that aren't going to feel that grief. Look who's getting the grief. As you said before, he's driving instructors. We're getting it every single day by a text, on social media, by in person, by just the way we feel. We're getting this constantly. Me and you had a conversation before, and I won't go too deep into this, but I was talking to you about how in certain areas my confidence is shot now. And that ties into a lot of the stuff we've been speaking about today. So, yeah, I think that if they're sheltered from it and it's lower down, then maybe that's why that's not having a bigger impact. We haven't done this, but we have done this, this, and this, and look how shiny this looks. That's hard work and it's annoying. We'll leave them instructors to it, but
we do run the risk of becoming the blooper reel for the DVSA, though.
We like a good blooper. But yeah, I appreciate this is quite a negative way to start the show, although I did just give them some praise. But I appreciate it's quite almost a downbeat way to start the show, but it'll be remiss to talk about that stuff. So let's take a moment to set the table. Chris, do you want to tell people who you are, what your hat is, and where they can find you?
So I'm Chris Bensted. I am the co-founder of the Driving Instructor and Trainers Collective, the DITC, which is the signposting platform for the driving instructor industry, trying to help you find what you didn't know was out there but probably need. So if you find something you probably need, get in touch and we can probably help you find it.
Excellent. And I'm going to chip this in, and I warned you I'd chip in with this. So Chris has also released a new standards check course. I think that's what you're calling it, and you're calling it Grade A. And I have taken part in that, saying it's a wonderful course. I fully endorse it, fully embrace it, and fully recommend it. And I'm going to give a little mention now to, if you want to take part in this, do it quickly, because I have recommend the increases prices quite highly for said course. So jump in with that if and when you can, but highly recommend that. But yes, you are listening to The Green Room. This is The Green Room number 31 episodes in of the Instructor Podcast Green Room. And Yeah, make sure you are clicking subscribe because we're currently between seasons. So there's obviously a lot less episodes coming out. So make sure you're clicking subscribe so it drops into your feed whenever there's an episode. And if you want even more content on things around the standards check or coaching or mindfulness or growing and developing your business, then head over to the Instructor Podcast Premium, where for as little as £10 a month, you get access to over 100 exclusive shows, trainings, podcasts, written articles, videos, all that kind of goodness. And you can find all that over at www.theinstructorpodcast.com. Before we move on, Chris, and look at the other key topics that we want to address, do either of you two, Phil or Stuart, want to chip in with any comments on what we've been speaking about so far?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I agreed I mentioned this on the post that you put on Facebook about the communication, and I'm happy for them to just say we can't do anything because our hands are tied or whatever, and you would just have some empathy with that, and then it would be better to sort of a better pill to take. And they are a government department, and there is we're in this little we're obsessed with this because it's what affects us. But I am sure there are other industries who are government regulated that are also obsessed with their little part because there's not as much money. My only issue with the DVSA is they do have a source of income other than just from the government and from test fees, and it might not be very popular for them to do that, but I do wonder why they don't just increase the test fees, have more money to pay examiners or employ more examiners, and it would fix it straight away. It would stop people booking tests willy-nilly and not caring about it, and it would also give them more funds to increase their service, basically.
Remember all the fuss, was it last year when they increased it by like £1 or something like that? And there was a massive wave of communication. We got more communication about that pound than we have about anything else. And half of people were kicking off and half didn't care, and half had strong opinions and half didn't. And I remember thinking then exactly what you just said, just bump it up by 30 quid, double it. And, you just got this massive revenue coming in. Yeah, wholeheartedly agree, Phil. Chris, anything you want to touch on with that?
I think if the going rate out there at the moment is 150 quid or whatever it is, then, if people are paying that anyway, I appreciate that they're very aware of different areas of the country, having more or less money to spend. But how many lessons have you got to have to, extra to bridge that gap while you're waiting? If it develops a solution, then most instructors will find, a way around that of, all right, we'll do a lesson every 8-9 days instead of every 7, or, and we can bridge that gap fairly easily. So, yeah, I would agree.
And to be fair, I did have someone say to me recently, we should increase our price, or I should increase my prices to my learners so I can give all my content away for free and don't charge ADIs. So, we're only suggesting the DVSA do the same. Stewart, do you want to come in with something on that?
First of all, thank you for letting me gate crash, Terry. It's very kind of you to let me hang around when I shouldn't actually be here, so thanks. And really interesting to hear Chris's points and Phil's points and yourselves. I think there's some really eloquent stuff there. There's a lot of angst, which we get at test centres up and down the country. I'm part of the ADI NGC. We hear it all the time through the ADI NGC. That doesn't belittle anything that we're talking about at all. And I don't want anything that I say now to take away from what is an important conversation. But I'm just fed up with it. I'm really scunnered and fed up with the fact that driving instructors up and down the country, national associations, capable trainers and industry leaders, as you guys are, have to talk about this kind of thing, about the DVSA, and talk about how rubbish governments are. We all know governments are rubbish. Do you know, it's departments of transport. Chris, your point about, and I've heard you talk about this in other places, about this being a minimum standards industry. I like that point, but I think it works better, or you can expand it to include the fact that the DVSA is a minimum standards organisation in terms of the level of service they provide to driving instructors. The DVSA has no interest in communicating with learner drivers. They will use driving instructors because we have more contacts. To me, that's not that controversial. It would cost them a fortune to go and run more campaigns than they already are. I think you're right in what you say about Ready to Pass. It's a really good campaign. They are doing good things, as Terry said in that report. My main interest is more about moving this kind of conversation on. We acknowledge it. We fight through things like the DITC. We fight through representations through NASP. These things are important. What are we going to do beyond that? I don't really know. I would rather we all got together as a collective group and got our heads back around more important things about road safety, developing driving instructors, doing some of the more interesting things like I know Phil is doing later on with the book review on the inner game. I'm sorry I can't make that, Phil, even though I voted for the book. But I'm sure it's going to be brilliant. These are the things that get me excited about the industry. And the opportunity to persuade capable, intelligent people like you to put all your brain work to things like that rather than getting angry. Because I've been in this industry a long time, and I run a driving school. I know all the arguments, I know all the angst, and I'm done with it. I'll contribute when I'm asked to, but I want to move on. I want us all to kind of move on from that. Sorry, that's me off my soapbox.
Oh, I love that. And just before I respond, I will just mention that join the Instructor Podcast Facebook group and you can come along to Phil's book club, the ADI book club. It's the Inner Game of Tennis he's covering this month, I believe. I say this month, it's very soon, so by the time this has gone out, it's too late. But you can always come to the next one. And the videos are uploaded into the group as well, so you can go back and watch later as we discuss them. And did the first one last month, didn't you, Phil? And it was awesome. So, yes, come along to that, and I'll let you promote that in a second as well. But you've just put very eloquently what I put absolutely butchered at the start of the show. And it goes back to what I was saying about not having a topic for this show, not really knowing where to take it. And it's because initially, when Loveday was answering the questions in to Parliament or whatever, and I got so frustrated by that, and it's that reaction that we have, but then we have to control the reaction, and so immediately I'm like, right, this is what we're talking about on the podcast, and I get all hyped up, and then I calm myself down. I'm like, no, do you know what? I don't want to talk about this. And I sent Chris this message: change your plan for the green room. I'm sick. I'm sick of so much nonsense and negativity and fed up talking about waiting times. And don't think we can ignore them. I think if I'm doing this monthly show on the news in the industry, when stuff like this gets said, we have to address it. But it's why I try not to make it the topic of the show. So I can wholeheartedly agree. And you've put that an awful lot better than I can. So thank you for phrasing it that way.
And I also think that when you're talking about the news and what the DVSA have put out there, and they got to choose the rhetoric of it, we've got to respond to that. And what that means is that instructors will then listen, and then we can promote things like the book club, and we can promote things like the whole content of the instructor podcast. It's a bit like if you want to sell a course, then make it about the standards check. And as Terry has said, if I've got a standards check course out there, it's nothing to do with the standards check. It's about every single lesson being awesome. But if I put, let's make every single lesson awesome, no one will turn up, which is really difficult when it's a one-to-one course. But actually, when you're trying to promote that, you've got to start with the pain points first. And just to take what you've said, Stuart, was about the DVSA can't talk to all of the pupils, although Ready to Pass is doing really well at that. It would be good if they spoke to all the instructors, but if we go back to COVID, when I believe the DVSA said we can't be expected to communicate with all of the instructors because we'd have to have their details, the people that run the register. So, it's a bit of a difficult one if they can't even communicate with us, for us to then do the job of communicating with our networks. And 100% all for that. But I think sometimes they make the rod for their own back. But if we can then spin some positive from that and say to people, look, we're all in the same boat, because they're the people. I know you guys at the NJC get more calls than I do from instructors about the mental health state of things and everything else. I think sometimes I benefit from the fact that I'm a face, a specific face, rather than necessarily being a title. That you get those people that are really struggling, and if that's not being addressed and not, that they're not being told you're not alone, because at that point they're feeling really alone, they haven't got the up to find from there, and actually acknowledging it and saying it's shit for all of us, because I think it is, then at that point we can kind of go, there's ways to make that better. Let's actually forget about it. You can't do anything about it, 100%. So what you can do is manage your own backyard and make things better and communicate well. And as Terry said, cancel lessons when you should be cancelling the lessons, and not go out there, pulling over every 3 minutes to recover. And if you're not in a good state for it, then find ways around that. If it means taking a step away, take a step away.
It wasn't my finest hour. And just touching on your point about the standards check to get people in, Phil, you asked me on a podcast recently what the name of my upcoming book is, and it's not a standards check book. So a surefire way to sell no copies, I would say. Let's move on then. Not necessarily something more positive, but definitely the most important topic that I've seen recently, as I mentioned at the start of the show. And I'm going to come to you on this first, Phil. Point first or gas first, because I have seen this debate at least 3 times this month that has resulted in, I reckon, at least 17 arguments, 3 punch-ups and 1 possible, hospitalisation. So, Phil, banging point first or gas first? Does it matter? Do we need to talk about it?
Well, we shouldn't have to talk about it because, yes, it does matter, and yes, there is. But I can understand in driving that there are some things that are debatable. Signals, for example, could be very debatable. It very clearly says in the driving essential skills, set your gas and find the bite. It's quite clear. It's black and white. It says it there. And yes, we should be setting our gas and finding our bite. It's as simple as that. And I understand that some cars don't, and some cars, but we should be teaching pupils to be able to drive in any car, and therefore we should be teaching them to do it properly. So yeah, gas and bite. I bang my head against the window when we have this debate.
To be fair, we said we weren't going to debate. I feel a debate coming on. Yay! Because I teach both. I'm like, okay, if you're doing a parallel path around this car, don't bother putting your gas on. Just use your clutch. If you're reversing, don't use your gas. Just use your clutch, which I think is essentially the same thing. If you're on a hill start, use your gas. And I think, but you kind of touched on that at the end. There's times you'll do it and times you won't. So, do what's appropriate for the situation. I think that's what it boils down to. I can see someone's ready to eager to dive in on this. Look at the reaction. This topic has got the same reaction. I didn't get this reaction from the DVSA comments. This is brilliant. I know what to talk about now.
It's always theory first. We know that. That's the most important element that gets ignored. Fork first or knife first. They do 2 different jobs. It depends what you're doing with them. So actually break it down, do it individually. What's the gas pedal about? It's not about gas anyway, because there's lots of electrics out there. I haven't got any. It's about power. It's about the engine. Then the clutch is about the dispersal of it. So if I'm in my previous car that would pull away without any gas whatsoever, why would I destroy the environment by revving? Makes no sense. It doesn't need the power, so I don't need to add the power. So if we understand it, I think there's a massive danger, and it's not often that I disagree with Phil, which is brilliant. I love it.
Can I jump in there then? So, but my guess is you would have your foot over the gas in that moment, like maybe not pressing it, but I'm sure your foot would be on the gas.
I might be on the brake.
Would you be pressing the brake?
Yeah, because
that's the one that gets me. I do not, and again, we might disagree with this, but I can't be doing with foot on the brake, find the bite, and then release the brake.
So some cars now, when you push the accelerator, the automatic handbrake comes off. the hill assist comes off and it will then roll backwards. And the advice from those companies is to hold the brake, find your bite, not straining, but just finding it, and then come off the brake before, so that doesn't happen. So it's again car specific, and we've got so many different styles of technology coming through. It's the technology that causes the problem. That actually, I don't think to be honest, I'm going to be really, really honest. You lost me at it's in driving essential skills, because there's a lot of that book I won't agree with. I think you've got to have a foundation knowledge. So if someone came into it knowing nothing, yeah, it's all good. It breaks things down. But then you end up with different things. Of the one that I get a lot is people who've moved from traditional parking brake. I can hear certain instructors screaming, parking brake, traditional parking brake, hand parking brake. That's better. That is moved across to an electric. And then they're getting their pupils to get their feet ready and then hand releasing the electric parking brake instead of moving off. And when you move off, it turns itself off automatically. And the number of cars I've been in with people that don't understand their own vehicle. And therefore, if we don't understand it, how can we teach it well? And actually, I think it's important to go, well, what are we trying to achieve and how do we best achieve it? If we don't need power, why are we adding some?
Is amazing. If you are listening to this on the podcast version, go check YouTube out, scroll forward 40 minutes and watch some of the expressions on here, because I am 31 episodes into the grooming and I finally found out how to do it. Next month, we are going to be asking, do we need to check our mirrors in pairs? And
what about flip-flops?
Flip-flops are on there, yep. It's going to have some right fun going forward now. I found a new bonus end to the show that I'm going to do. Stuart, do you want to come in on this super important topic that I intended as a joke?
Well, first of all, I want to know if you're going to talk about wing mirrors or door mirrors. That's on the next one. That's really important. I'm going to sit in the fence probably because I like Driving Essential Skills. It's the book that we tell our PDIs to go to for part 2, kind of training. I know that it does say set the gas, and therefore that's the way I tend to try and get PDIs to do it when I'm doing not part 2 necessarily, but for part 3, I would probably get them to set the gas. Do I drive that way? No, not at all. Have I ever seen a driving fault being given for incorrect use of that kind of thing? No. But then just to take on, I guess I'm kind of supporting both of you here. I'm with Phil in that I don't particularly like clutch and brake either. I know there's no rational reason to that because we use the parking brake or whatever you called it, the lever, the brake lever, to hold it on the bike. Why should we not use the foot? So I get that as well. So I don't know either. You should go and listen to a more serious podcast. Let's get less nonsense on it with people who know things, Terry. That's my...
Well, if you are still listening, feel free to go check out Dipod. They actually debate mirrors in pairs quite regularly over there, so we don't need to do that one. I will say though, what is interesting, and this fully supports what you've said since the first time I've met you, Chris, that we've asked a question about driving instructing to 4 instructors and got 4 different answers. And I think if that doesn't sum up our industry, I don't know what will. And I've got a new sense of sympathy for the DVSA.
Yeah, we need the DVSA to clarify these points once and for all. That's what we need.
They did drive essential skills.
That would assume that they were right and that they're not based on minimum standards. So
before you move on, can I just I fully get Chris's point about how you should have conversations around different ways and different options within cars. But I think possibly where I'm coming from is the same with Stewart, is the fact training PDIs, if they're going to a part 3 and they say it the other way around, and actually I'm just wary of maybe some PDIs listening to this, an examiner would pick them up on technical information because it isn't what's within driving essential skills.
No, they won't.
Really? Mind examiner would.
If they explain why. If they give the why behind it, no, they won't.
I suppose if there was learning behind it, yeah, okay. But if there wasn't, and they just said set the brake and then find the clutch, the examiner would pick up on that.
If it caused a problem to the learner, yes. But I don't. I think it's It's that thing of, if there was something wrong, I think what actually happens more often, this is probably the more interesting bit, as much fun as it is debating it, is, so I had a PDI who came out from the debrief thinking that they had to put the handbrake on every time the car stopped because that was what they were told by the examiner. And it wasn't. It was about the fact we need to have a discussion about when the parking brake, handbrake, whatever we want to call it, is appropriate. And that's the bigger conversation. And I think that's always what happens with the divide, the communication divide between ourselves and the DVSA. And I was in a meeting last night in which commentary was mentioned. So it's talking about the potential changes to ADI Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 process, talking about audit. And it was that commentary is now not spoken about at the DVSA. They talk about, I've got it in a bit of paper so I remember, they talk about descriptive talk through instead of commentary because people don't like the connotations of the word commentary. So this is why I'm glad that Stewart's the one that has to sit and do the NASP stuff because, I couldn't stay quiet.
Yeah.
This is also a regular guest on Motormouth by DIA, which I'm not sure if it's still running, to be honest with you. But their bio for their podcast is, unlike a webinar or traditional industry podcast, we'll be pulling together leading figures in the field to discuss, dissect and debate key issues for driver and rider trainers. Clearly not this podcast. But no, I just find that the whole thing fascinating. And as a host, this is where it's really difficult for me because what I want to do now is give my opinion and then change the topic. But that somehow wouldn't feel fair. But I will just say that for me, I kind of touched on this when I mentioned it, and I think it's just situational, a lot of it. I think you mentioned about brake and clutch. It's like if you come to a set of lights and you stop, you don't immediately put your handbrake on if the lights are changing. So you're on your brake. You might have to find your biting point, then come off your brakes if it's uphill or whatever. I think if you're doing manoeuvres, you're less likely to use your gas. But generally, when you're setting off, you're going to use gas first. But then again, like you said, Stuart, do I drive like that? Not always. I'm guilty of using the clutch before I get on the gas. So I think that there's a variety of opinions there. But I do want to move on, as interesting as that was. And we'll maybe chuck these questions in at the end of each episode now because I'm quite enjoying them. But I do want to speak a little bit about driving instructors on social media and a very specific breed, because it's starting to concern me a little bit. And I realise by saying that, I'm making this topic loaded slightly. But I'm thinking specifically about YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, the videos and stuff. And some of the information that's been put out there towards the learners is just outright false and wrong. Some of it is massively clickbait. Some of it is dubious, shall we say. Some of it is obviously phrased in a way to make themselves look like they've had this amazing idea that no one's ever discovered before, which, is fine. That's just a way of phrasing stuff. I'm just wondering if that's actually starting to become a problem. So, Chris, if I phrase that so it makes sense, is it something you've seen? Do you think it's a potential issue?
Yes, I think there's lots of layers to the issue. I think, firstly, there's the safety angle that I have seen, instructors operating phones while the car's going along on a lesson, just law break stuff. We don't want that representing us. And something should be done. And, I think that's hugely wrong. I think we then end up in that horribly competitive social media world where you're trying to one up everybody else because you're the one that wants the views, and then it becomes unreal. And there's all of this stuff that kind of goes on that becomes, they believe that that's what we do, and it's not. It's all very test focused as well. It's some of it's opinion based, like the conversation we've just had. So, opinion gets expressed and then people jump on it, and, we should be able to have those nice adult debates and Phil and I will still talk I still think he's a lovely bloke. He's just wrong. It's fine, but it's. But no, it's. We should be able to have those debates because we can do so in that really professional way, and we can have some fun with it. It's all good, but it is. I think when it's on social media, it's put out there as fact because it's in a video with no retort and no comeback. There's a danger, and then the other bit is it focuses on, and this is what I've noticed growing. It focuses on a minimum standard, so it's how badly can you steer the car or control the steering wheel and still be acceptable on test? Well, surely we should be going best practice. Surely we should be putting a video out there saying, while you might get away with this is why you shouldn't do it. There's good reasons behind it. And it's not because you're a driving instructor, you drive like that. It should be because we're good, because we're actually competent, because we understand the risk. So again, it's the conversation's missing, and I think it's become very clickbaity, and just trying to get things out there. I'm not a fan of all of it. I have no issue if people want to kind of build their reputation and their driving school on social media. I think there's really good ways to do it, but I suspect that some of it is causing a danger.
I do just want to chip in here and make one point that I don't for any second want to tar every school with the same brush. And Phil, I know you do a lot of stuff on social media, and you've done stuff on TikTok and stuff, and your stuff is really good. If you've got learners, send them to Phil's stuff. But the way we can get around that as instructors, I believe, is to find the good resources and send them to our students. It doesn't matter whose it is, because then you're sending them to them and you can have conversations, but also, from my experience, engage with your students and talk to them. Do you watch TikTok videos? And yeah, okay, well, what have you seen? What stood out for you? And you gave some of the examples there, Chris. They're the things that stand out. And I'm going to give a quick example now, and I've just twigged what my example is, which was someone that specifically told me that you cannot set off without using gas. And she'd seen that on the TikTok video, and she showed me the video, and she was 100% adamant, and she showed me the video, and they'd said you cannot set off without gas. Now, I don't know whether he was meaning his car and phrased it badly, or whether he meant don't, or what, but he phrased it very specifically. So she'd come to a lesson just adamant that you couldn't, and I'm like, let's try. And she tried and did it really well. She then proceeded to use the gas, which was fine, but it's that those myths, those clickbait things that are put out, the ones we see the titles for, learner fails a driving test in first minute. It's a mock test that an instructor's done that probably wouldn't even been a fail anyway, but, let's get some people viewing. And the other one I would say, this is just a personal one of mine that I genuinely detest. It's when you see the video footage and the learner makes a mistake and the instructor immediately looks up at the camera and pulls that little expression. And I'm like, where should your attention be now? You are not a driving school. You are a social media product. That's what you are now. You are no longer delivering lessons. You are creating social media content. But learners don't realise that. Driving schools don't realise that. There's an episode going out as we record this tomorrow on my premium feed that we specifically talk about that, the difference between driving schools that are social media machines and driving schools. Phil, do you have any thoughts on this as to what we've said already?
Yeah, I sort of kind of get why they do it. Is my issue. I don't agree with it, but it sells basically. Those you fail your test if you do this sort of stuff. That's what people want, and I suppose that's their goal, isn't it? To grow a social media is not necessarily to be the best instructor giving out the best information. So that's kind of their goal, and I can kind of get it if that's what you want. It's not me. I wouldn't do it. I'd rather have less viewers and actual good content. I always make sure anything that I put out is positive. I don't think I've ever put out a video of a pupil making a mistake, because I don't want to go look at my pupil making this mistake. What I put out is look at my pupil doing this amazing awareness coming up to a slip road, which I actually got a lot of stick from because a lot of lorry drivers were very upset that my pupil moved out into the middle lane to let people out. There was a very lot of debate on that video. But yeah, it's for me that should be the way it goes, is put out some positive stuff like this is what you should be doing, not this is what you shouldn't be doing, and make it more positive. I think that'd be the way I'd go.
It's going to make a note for a future episode. Should cars move out to the middle lane? No, I do. I get it. I get why they do it. But I suppose the question I'm going to ask you, Stewart, then is it a problem? And if it is, can we do anything to fix it?
I think, as Chris said, it probably is a problem because it's so unregulated and nobody's going to regulate it. The DVSA is not going to regulate it for us. Sorry to put that spoiler in there. But it's the same as any other industry, I kind of think. YouTube has built itself on how do I do this? And loads of, I can't think of any off the top of my head. You know, a golf swing, for example. How do I swing a golf club? How do I swing a tennis racket? And there are people who have built careers on social media doing this kind of thing. And I think in any specialist kind of industry, you're going to get people who are going to copy that model and try to run a business of it. I'm not overly familiar with the kind of videos that you're talking about. I kind of use YouTube for more kind of off-grid, off-work kind of stuff. But I'm aware of them. I'm uncomfortable with the fact that people are maybe taking advantage of learner drivers and making a living on that kind of content. Unfortunately, it won't. They're not making money from driving instructors, I don't think. They're making money from learner drivers. The money will be from learner drivers who are clicking through and watching it. Because even though it's an example of somebody doing something wrong, pupils may consider they're still learning something. Phil's point is great. Should we be watching things that are negative? Probably not. But people do learn stuff from it. It's still a demonstration of how not to do something. We have internal videos in our driving school where we record part 3 mock tests, the same as Lou Walsh does. And we use them in-house for our PDIs. And everyone sees our PDIs making mistakes and doing things wrong. But then we talk about it, we explain why it could be done, how it could be done better. And we share that with the kind of next generation of PDIs. Yeah, there is probably some dangerous stuff going on out there. I'm probably on Chris's side with that. What can be done? I really don't know, Terry. I don't know.
I think we kind of made one suggestion before, which is the resources we send out. But I think it also ties into something you said earlier, Chris, about selling standards check to sell something else. I've got a lot of experience in this with the podcast. I know what titles will have bigger downloads than others. But from slightly different perspective, people that invest aren't the people that go to clickbait, or rarely the people that go to clickbait, the people that tend to invest. So even if we talk about the Instructor Podcast Premium, I'd say 99% of the people that come to Premium aren't people that were first attracted by the standards check stuff I do. They're people that were attracted by the variety of the episodes and the content that we put in, like the big debate about whether you should set your gas first or not. They're attracted by that, and then they come in. And I think that all we can do is all we can do. So like you were creating that content, Phil, and you're creating good quality content. Now, it may never reach, I don't know if it has, but it may never reach the levels of some of these other driving schools that are purely clickbait, that don't analyze problems, that don't work with the learners, that simply highlight the mistake they've made and then tell them how to fix it. You don't actually see the learning going on, if you like. You may never reach that, but you're still influencing people. I use this podcast again as an example. This podcast of season 5 was listened to by, I forgot the numbers, 4,000 people, roughly 4,000 people across season 5. That's 10% of the industry. I've got my mouth right now. Yeah. So, but that's only 10%. What about the other 90? Well, I can't affect them. I can only affect this. And I think it's really easy, because I do, to get disheartened, to think, well, why ain't everyone listening? Why ain't everyone watching this video? Why ain't everyone watching my video on how to do a left turn safely? Why ain't everyone watch my video on why you don't have to do a 6-point or 17-point check before you set off? But all we can affect is all we can affect. And I think the more content we put out that's quality, then the better. So whether that's what you're doing, right, coaching, Stewart, or the, what do you call them, ADINJC, or Phil with the driving school and the stuff you're going down, or the DITC, or whatever other hat you decide to wear, I think that all we can do is what we can do and influence who we can, and then sweep up the stuff from everyone else. But I suppose aside from that, Chris, is there anything else we can do?
I think just hold ourselves to account. Don't do it for the other people if there's going to be, a risk of it. I don't know. It's something that I've always just done kind of as part of valuing the effort and work and things I've put in. We all know how easily it can be taken away by doing something silly, by making a mistake, by something being misconstrued, or, you have a bad day, you put something on Facebook. The number of times I've regretted putting something up, but I knew when I did it that I shouldn't have been doing it. There was that voice and I ignored it. Tried to listen first. So, type it out. The number of messages I haven't sent probably outweigh the number of messages that I have, fairly dramatically. So, type it out by all means, but don't hit send. The same with a video. Get someone else to watch it for you and say, do you think I should? There was a moment when, I won't go into the specific details because it was thoroughly inappropriate and it was nothing to do with work as such. But I sent Terry a picture that I'd photoshopped, and he disapproved. Do you know what was awesome? He told me he disapproved. We had a conversation about it. I went, all right, fair enough, misjudged that, and we're still friends. You can do it. It's possible. I think it's having people that you can do that with, and not the fanboys or fangirls that will encourage you to do, the stuff because, it's brilliant. You'll get a really good reputation. It's not a good reputation. It's a reputation. And just think twice. I think the only other thing I will say is the DVSA will step in if on social media you are not fit and proper. There's a couple of cases at the moment where examiners are being put on, the debriefs are being put on social media. They're being filmed with examiners on them. And I know those are being investigated. So, while they won't regulate as Stewart said, if it's not fit and proper, they will take action, and they can really easily. It's the big axe that gets held over our heads all the time, fit and proper. So just think twice.
That had gone out, I don't think you'd still be kicking around as you are now, Chris, I'll be honest with you. But I think maybe the less said about that one, the better. But I remember that's etched into my brain.
It was going to be sent personally. It wasn't going to be put publicly, but it still probably wasn't a good decision.
No, just before you move on, because I feel like that's what we're about to do, can I offer a solution to what you were saying about it potentially being dangerous and if there's misinformation out there? Is it not any different to possibly what a lot of driving instructors do when people first get in their car, is ask about, have you had any private practice? Have your parents told you anything that maybe you need to ask me about? Like, can't we just add that to the conversation? Have you seen anything on social media this week that you want to talk to me about? Or even actually AI now, like somebody might have asked ChatGTP how to do a parallel park. So I think it's just having that conversation with your learner and actually not necessarily dismissing it, but just using it as a learning tool to sort of create good conversations with your learners.
That's a great idea, especially on the first lesson. Like you say, you ask for people's, influences in driving. Well, they've got influences beyond what we had 10 years ago now. So I think that's a great shout. And I had a brilliant one recently. Do they call it a 6-point check or a 7? I can never remember that some instructors insist upon. But I can't remember whether to do my 6-point check starting from my right or my left. Like, yeah, that was an interesting conversation. Anyway, Yes, we were. I'm going to move on a little bit because I want to touch on this because it's the last episode before the Meginar. So I just want to speak for a minute about that because we have got two people on the show today that are going to be presenting at the Meginar. So I'm not going to come to them first because I think it was you that said it, Chris, not going to the fanboys, the people that are biased. We'll go to someone that's a little bit more impartial in Phil. So the lineup for the Meginar on the 3rd of August is Bob Morton, who's going to be talking about coaching. I've got Sendcast that have come in to replace Engage, who had to unfortunately step out, and they're going to be talking about how to sort of initially spark that conversation around diversity and special needs, that kind of stuff. We've got Fresh Drivers talking about garage anxiety. Stewart Lochrie, incredibly handsome chap, wonderful and knowledgeable man. Who told me his new title that I've forgotten. What's your new title, Stewart?
I'm the founder at Bright Coaching.
No, sorry for the webinar, the presentation you're doing.
You got it right. You got it right on the latest release. Moving on up, Life Beyond the DVSA.
There we go. So I remembered it for the written, but not for the audio. Richard Morley has come along to giving us some breathing techniques to manage stress levels. Elizabeth Box is talking about pre-driver education. Chris Bensted is doing the theory. I'm not going to say you're handsome. Laura Joyce is talking about social media for driving instructors, and knowledgeably instructor training are coming to talk a little bit about, well, taking us back to the future. And I'll let you work that out amongst yourselves. So I've got two questions for you, Phil. Firstly, are you looking forward to this? Secondly, is there a particular speaker you're looking forward to?
No, it sounds awful. So yes, absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. You happen to have put it on the day that I normally have a team meeting with my instructors, so I have advised all my instructors to sign up for that instead of listening to me talk. So have I got a particular speaker? I'm just going to go for Stewart because he's there looking at me.
I've always liked you, Phil. I've always liked you.
Yeah.
Not to disagree with Phil now because he'll choose someone else later on.
To be honest, I'm looking forward to all of them. I think it's a lovely mix of not just instructor stuff. It's stuff that it is instructor stuff, but not standards check stuff, I suppose is what I mean. So yeah, it's a lovely mix. I think actually I'm looking forward to probably the garage anxiety one, partly because I have garage anxiety. I'm rubbish with cars, and I've got a car that needs to go into MOT recently, and I've just recently asked my own instructors, like, who do you go to? Because how do you know who's good at being a mechanic? I'm assuming it's the same problem learners have choosing driving instructors.
And often, what do we ask? What cost will it be?
Yeah, exactly.
What's your pass rate? What's your pass rate in fixing cars
for MOT?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, for anyone listening, it is on the 3rd of August. It's going to be broadcast into a private Facebook group, so people can go in and listen to that. It'll be left up for a couple of days, and then you will all be kicked out. So you'll have access to it for a couple of days. Ideally, watch it live, because live you'll be able to go into the chat and interact with each other and ask questions. Some of the presenters are they can all come in if they want, but they're more than welcome to come into the group and interact in the group. They can share their presentations in there. They can, post where you can find them, all that kind of stuff. So there will be a one-off presentation that will last probably about 3 hours, if everyone's doing 20 minutes each. Get in live if you can. Sign up to Instructor Podcast newsletter, because that's where I'm going to send the links out so you can join up. And the reason I decided to do it like that with everything else, because it's easier to get people in. I don't have to worry about the numbers, and anyone, the presenters that want to interact can do. But as I said, we have got two presenters here. So Stewart, you were one of the first people I invited along to come and present, and you said no. And I came back and asked again, and you said no. And eventually you got sick of me begging you and said, yeah, I'll do it. Are you looking forward to doing it? Is there anything you're particularly looking forward to other than yourself?
First of all, Terry, thank you for asking me. Honestly, it's a real privilege. I think we met at Kempton Park for the first time. You were doing your podcast live episode with Chris on stage, and I thought it was just a really fresh, kind of interesting thing to see at a conference. It was brilliant, and I was really just honoured to be asked to do it. I'm looking forward to it. I've not done anything like this before outside of my own team or outside of the NGC. I'm looking forward to Liz Box I've been speaking to Liz Box for the qualification that we've written with Bright Coaching, getting some insight from Liz and some also kind of Lisa Dorn and that side. That side of the industry fascinates me. That's my bag. Do you know, that whole driver psychology, the research that psychologists do working in road safety that never makes its way to the test centre. I think the last time it did to any great significance would have been something like the Hermes report, 10, 14 years ago. And that's the stuff that got me into the kind of stuff I'm into now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking to Liz, but there's loads of great variety on there, which is another thing that you've done really well. It's not about standards check. It's a little bit of coaching with Bob, who's brilliant, but stuff about neurodiverse learners, garage anxiety, it's just stuff that I've not seen anywhere else. So I'm looking forward to be part of it.
Awesome. I'm almost reluctant to say this because I don't want to dismiss anyone else, but I think Elizabeth Box is... I was very pleased to get Elizabeth. I was pleased, obviously, with everyone, but it's like Elizabeth, I was almost a bit surprised when she said yes, because I know how busy she is, and I'd never spoken to her before, and my first time I spoke to her was literally, will you come on my Meginar? And she was like, yeah, of course I will. And I'm fascinated to listen to that conversation, empowering young drivers, leveraging research-backed strategies for effective instructor support. So she's tailored what she's doing specifically for driving instructors, and I'm looking forward to all. And I will just mention as well, Richard Morley. I'm not going to say now where I'm placing people in the order. It's not fully decided yet, and I'll be reaching out to everyone very, very soon, so don't worry. But I'm putting Richard Morley slap bang in the middle. He's going to give us a short meditation, so we have that big block of stuff beforehand. Richard's going to give us a meditation, going to give us some breathing strategies to take away for ourselves to help us calm us down for the standard check, anxiety, that kind of stuff, and then get in with that next block. So I think that's going to work really well as well. Chris, I have asked you about this previously, but we're talking about it now, so I'll mention it again. What are your thoughts on the Meginar, and is there anyone you're particularly looking forward to?
I want to see whether it's awesome or a disaster, because they're your two predictions. Yep. Either way, I'll enjoy it, because it'll give me cannon fodder or it'll give me education. So I can't lose, really. Liz is brilliant. I've spoken to her a few times over different things, and I totally agree with what Stewart said. There's not enough of that in the industry. I don't get why, because I find it absolutely fascinating. I've done Lisa Dawn's course, and again, I some of it I think we don't know what to do with it. I don't think we're educated enough in how to then take that. It's a lovely fact, they'll give you this awesome idea of what the problem is, but they don't give us the solution to go and then tackle it, because some of the times they don't know, because it's human behavior. I think there's that element of things there. I like breathing. Breathing's good, so I'll go with Richard on that one. He's in the room, so obviously I want to listen to what Stewart. No, I'm looking forward to what Stewart's got to say as well. So I'd like to know what I'm going to say. I was going to change the subject actually. So should we go gas, clutch, or clutch? Gas, but
door mirrors or wing mirrors. Door mirrors or wing mirrors.
Yeah. So something about theory. I'm thoroughly enjoying my theory journey. It's awesome. So it's going to be another part of that. So I'm looking forward to finding what I talk about.
Phil, if you want to hijack Chris's presentation, let me know. I'll send you a Zoom link through. But no, it's the CPD event of the summer, in my opinion. I'm going to go so far as to say this. It's the first annual Meginar, or maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll do 2 a year. Who knows? But I'm intending to be the first, so hopefully more. But I also want to take a moment just to thank everyone that's agreed to do it, and also go slightly beyond that, because I've said this before, I'll say it again, that I'm always pleasantly surprised with the time people are willing to give up. I look at this podcast here, I've got you three awesome folk that are coming along and interacting and engaging and making it more enjoyable for listeners. In my premium group recently, I've had Chris Brooker and I always want to call Chris Bensted, but Chris Brooker and Adila Marcia, they're absolutely nothing to do with the industry, but two phenomenal people in their own industries coming to share their insight. They're going to get nothing from coming to talk to my premium members or coming on the podcast, but they come and do it. And I think there's a lot of negativity around, but look at that, and it just makes me smile. It makes me positive, and I think that these are stuff we can take going forward. So you two are here, so thank you for agreeing to doing it. I'm very much looking forward to it. And the 3rd of August, head over to the website, check the show notes out, and you can sign up over there. Think that's about all we're going to cover today. I think we'll wrap up there. So I'll come to each of you individually. Phil, do you want to just give people a quick heads up on where they can find you?
So yeah, I'm at cowleyschoolofmotoring.com. Or if you're a PDI, come join Lou's PDI group. I'm admin there. And then obviously the book club, which is tomorrow, which I'm pretty sure this won't be out by then, but it's tomorrow as we're recording. And yeah, we're talking about in the game of tennis, and I already have another book lined up for next month, but we'll keep that secret. Teasing for tomorrow's episode. So yeah, come and join in, because the more people, the merrier. We can have a great conversation about coaching.
Sorry, go on.
That was it.
Okay. Phil's doing
I'm going to teach in automatic. That's what I'm going to do, because apparently I know nothing about gas.
Phil's doing a great job over on the book club there. He took it all from me, and I'm loving what he's doing over there. And the inner game of tennis, one I'm looking forward to. I'm also now keen to see what we're doing next month. But Stewart, do you want to take a moment just to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me at my new website, which is brightcoaching.net. At the moment, it's just a sign-up form to stay informed of what we'll be doing towards the end of the year and into next year. But basically, we've written a professional accredited qualification, coaching, advanced kind of coaching techniques, behavioural change, and driver psychology. It launches in Glasgow next year. The hope is that obviously we sell some places on that training course, and eventually we can maybe bring it down to south of the wall one of these days into England. But yeah, brightcoaching.net. If you're interested and you like to be kept informed, then sign up to that mailing list. And yeah, thanks very much.
I'm coming up to Motherwell later on this year for a different course. So yeah, it'll be a fun one to attend in Glasgow next year as well. So you might be seeing a bit more of me up north. I know I've got a few listeners up there. So maybe expand that a little bit. But Chris, tell people which hat they can find you under.
So Theory Test Explained for all of your theory test or part 1 needs, DITC, so that I can point you in the direction of me for the theory test, or other people if you need other stuff. So that's theditc.co.uk. If just want to chat, just get in touch. I'm quite happy to have one of those.
And as mentioned earlier, for the Instructor Podcast, make sure you're subscribing so that these episodes that come out before season 6, you get them dropped into your feed straight away. Go check out the YouTube channel. Lots of little bonus pieces of content coming up over there, as well as the video for this. Make sure you're heading over to the website. That's where you'll find all the stuff for the newsletter. You can sign up for the Instructor Podcast Premium. Loads of content over there. Loads of good stuff over there. But all that's left for me to say is thank you for listening. And thank you guys for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.